Okay, piratesandprincesses.net. This is the first time that I've ever heard from you, and I hope it's going to be the last. Your review from episode 4 of WandaVision was so awful and anger-inducing that it prompted me to get right out of my bed and immediately start working on the script for this video. Once I started clicking around on your site, it became even more clear that I shouldn't be surprised by any of your antics, but rather that you still have a job with your shit writing skills. So without further ado, my anti-review. At the start of your review, you expressed that you've been waiting to see if this show would make sense of it all and make the tedious nature of the early episodes worth it. A notion that I think that everybody else can agree with as well. Some shows start off really slow. Look at Sons of Anarchy or the 4400, for instance. Both started off really slow and there was a mystery afoot that you just had to wait for. With that being said, you immediately go on to say that this episode is, quote, a pile of hot steaming garbage, unquote, which would make me beg the question, how? If you hadn't kept on typing, I might have been spared ever having to read this abysmal attempt at a review. But here we are. We then immediately see a claim that there are no likable characters in this episode, which I would highly beg to differ. I mean, Randall even learned the card trick from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Come on now. Anyways, we start the episode off with a previously on WandaVision. It explains everything important to this episode before we even start it. Wanda meeting Geraldine, aka Monica, Randall Park trying to get a hold of Wanda through the radio, the children that Wanda conjured with what I'm led to assume is her chaos magic from the comics, Agnes and Herb grilling Vision over Geraldine because she's an outsider, the toy helicopter, the beekeeper, and finally, Geraldine's removal from Wanda's pocket universe. One more note that I feel like I shouldn't have to explain, but I obviously do, because WDW Pro doesn't seem to know or even care to understand it. This is a 9-episode limited series, and that means in order for people to digest it like a movie, they broke it up into 3 acts, like a movie. Episode 4 marks the beginning of Act 2. And here you state that we're rushed into Geraldine's backstory and that it was kind of cool. But that makes me think that you didn't understand the significance of the scene. It's supposed to firmly place us in the real world, the MCU Prime. There's no illusions here, there's no dead robots or immaculate witch conceptions. Geraldine, as you keep calling her throughout this read, is revealed to be Captain Monica Rambeau, the daughter from Captain Marvel, and she got snapped away 5 years ago by Thanos. 3 years ago, her mother, who built S.W.O.R.D. from the dirt up, died of cancer, leaving the job to commanding to Monica. But she was snapped away, meaning it went to her colleague in her absence. And when you find this out, it's mentioned that it's been 3 weeks since she did come back to life. In other words, yeah, she's had time to fucking absorb it, so what's that about? This episode's about catching up, so just attempt to keep up. Here you say, we're introduced to Patrick Warburton Light, a character whose only purpose is to do a really bad impression of Kronk. Squeak, squeaker, squeaketh. Translation, this sucks, but I'd say your analogy sucks and you're fucking stupid. I really don't know what the fuck you're talking about with the Patrick Warburton Light comments. The guy doesn't sound that much like him. He just sounds like a rough about military type that's, that just happened to come into contact with S.W.O.R.D. and rise to the ranks.
You know who this is?
This guy.
Captain Monica Rambeau.
It just seems like you're looking for shit to complain about, which is, again, apparent by clicking around on articles that you have written. You also go on to say that this episode is truly tone-deaf to our situation in the real world. Here's one problem with that. The MCU has established that their governments are very different from ours. Their lives are different. Hell, their worlds are even different, because it's a work of fiction. The Avengers exist. Spider-Man swings from buildings. Doctor Strange travels the multiverse. Thanos attacked the planet, for God's sake. And you want to sit here and act like WandaVision owes you some sort of representation? Just enjoy the work of fiction. Jesus Christ. Look, none of us want to have distrust in our government, and that's a simple fact. Is it a secret that our government has been failing us for years? Hell no, and we shouldn't be picking apart a show like WandaVision to change our country or world. You can do that yourself and be the change that you want to see in the world. You go on to write the good guys of the FBI and some big tech company. I think the term you're looking for is S.W.O.R.D., Sentient Weapon Observation Response Division, a sister division to S.H.I.E.L.D., and I'm assuming that they picked up a lot of Stark tech after the battle where, he kind of fucking died. Like, Big died. The next line is so fucking far out that I don't know what to do other than just read it in its entirety. Did the writers not figure out in the past 4 years that one of the few things both parties in the U.S. agree on is that the FBI is a corrupt, incompetent organization? Seriously, how out of touch can you be? Really? Is that what both parties agreed on? Like, real shit? Jesus fucking Christ. I shit you not, it keeps getting fucking better. Next part of the review goes on to say, oh, they can be plenty more out of touch, because then we're rushed into another scene where a bunch of randos that you can't possibly like or identify with are in a van being brought into a secure location. Why? Well, if you'd been paying attention to the show that you've been watching, instead of throwing a fit because they mentioned the FBI and not the major injustices that happened in 2020 in the same sentence, then you would know that the FBI was so stumped on a missing persons case that they requested outside assistance for recon from your pal Sword. Because we were rushed into watching Geraldine somehow find a town in New Jersey that is blocked off by an energy field and forgot. Did I just read that right? Okay. Oh, boy. Yeah, you really weren't paying attention to the Patrick Warburton light guy, were you? Whenever he literally gave her the fucking mission to go to New Jersey to chaperone a mission with the FBI. Jesus fucking Christ. You act like she just up and went there herself on a whim. Like, the scene before this establishes this, and it isn't forgotten. It's the whole premise of the show. What's happening to Wanda? Why is this big bubble in New Jersey taking up fucking all of Westview? Why doesn't anybody remember Westview? Holy shit. Holy fucking shit. Sometimes it hurts to witness the stupidity that I see on the internet. It hurts physically. You're also saying here that it's best that scene was forgotten as well, as it was as poorly acted as you can get. Alright. We're 7 minutes into this episode and you've already made me fact check you like I'm working a Trump debate. So like I really don't know what to tell you at this point. So I'm just gonna break down the scene that set this up. The FBI agent, Randall Park, explains in this scene that he had a WITSEC witness under house protection in the town of Westview, New Jersey. I'm sure you've heard of it. That morning, it looked like he flew the coop and ran. So Randall Park tries to get a hold of his family or anyone that would have known him, to no avail, because they've never heard of him before. They ask the cops, and the cops say they've never heard of the town or the person. They're from Eastview, implying that the radioactive bubble that Wanda has been living in is giving people in and or around the whole town amnesia. And it might be growing. Maybe why it was so poorly acted to you is that they all don't remember the town next to them and you just clearly weren't paying attention. So there's the answer to your stupid-ass question. Watch the show. Oh, now we move to my personal favorite part of the review. The part where the author does not remember Dr. Darcy from the first two, count them, 2 Thor movies. Oh. One of them is seriously the most unlikable human beings ever featured in a Marvel film or series. Congrats, Captain Marvel, you've been dethroned. I can only describe our new adventure as Beanie Head because her 2 signatures are hyper red lipstick and a beanie. Pretty sure they mean Darcy, Dr. Darcy Lewis. And I don't think that this person should be writing anything professionally at all. Because they single-handedly made me hate reviews. Jesus. This Kyle Chandler comment had me cracking up because it just goes to show that you either mean the security guard in which you're just bullying the guy for no reason, or you mean Randall Park in which you're just fucking racist. So you can go ahead and pick, and I'm not going to spend any more time on that. The next quote goes, "None of how this works is explained except that Beanie Head has stolen the PKE meter from the Ghostbusters and is using it to measure cosmic radiation or some other bull excrement that makes no sense." And to that I'd say she's an astrophysicist, so I'd assume that she wouldn't go to her job unprepared, you fucking mongoloid. You go on to start saying, anyway, they start watching the first episode, but the writers can't even keep track of what's going on because immediately they start talking about multiple episodes at a time when the characters have only seen the first episode. The writers of the show have actually addressed this in an episode of a little show called WandaVision, when the Patrick Warburton character asked the Beanie Chick if she knew if this was live, pre-recorded, or fabricated, in which she replies she doesn't know 3 times. It isn't extremely clear when the alternate reality episodes are happening, but using simple deduction, you can tell that the 1 to 3 episodes happen within 12 to 15 hours of each other. Monica gets sucked into the portal one day. They all watch the 3 episodes and find Monica the next, so please pay attention. The characters know exactly what we know. They're Avengers, one is dead, and there's a bubble in New Jersey that might be growing, so while I guess you're technically right about that, it isn't bad writing. This review of yours is. Shame on you. And then, really the only good question that you've asked through this whole review is, why must the episodes be watched on an old TV rather than any other type of device? And to that, I say, I don't know. I don't know why the episodes have to be watched on old TVs, goddammit. You got me there. Point to you, I guess. And then, my second personal favorite part of the entire article, where the author, this fucking mad lad, genius, big brain motherfucker at piratesandprincesses.net says, it's clear that this is an attempt to rip off Stranger Things. You are trying to tell me that this show is ripping off Stranger Things? How? In what fucking conceivable way? This review of yours has given me heartburn writing this script and doing this. All of these questions would be answered if you would just shut up and listen to it for 5 fucking minutes instead of squealing about social justice. I'm 19 minutes into this episode and I've already done this much to wipe my ass with your argument. Maybe this still doesn't make sense to you because you don't have a brain. I'd ask you if you ever thought about that, but I think I know the answer. You go on to say that we're in episode 4 and already none of this makes sense and not in a good way. And also there's no Mustache Man. What a terrible, terrible episode. And there's like 19 minutes left. There's like 15 minutes left or some shit in this episode, and you don't know anything because you haven't listened. That's my take on it. Fuck you, Pirates and Princesses. That's my anti-review. I don't like you guys. I hope Google never shows me your fucking articles again because they're all fucking dog shit. Gross.